So welcome to the test drive, fellas. There is a detailed tour on this boat. That's over on the channel page if you haven't come from that. We're running the triple V12 600 horsepowers on this boat. We're going to be going out in the ocean, doing some speed runs inshore, and then demonstrating some of the close quarters maneuvering. I do learn a thing or two about how to trim this thing for best fuel economy. So keep watching for that. Hope you enjoy. So we're starting this component of the sea trial out in the ocean, and the wind is building, coming in from a northeasterly direction, and we've got a nice little short, sharp chop now, a little bit more aggressive compared to an hour ago when we had the drone up. So you may notice some difference through camera 2 there looking forward as opposed to what you see on the drone. But yeah, it'll be a nice little test for you. Triple 600s on this one. So if you are comparing this against some of the quad rigs, this could be a useful test for you. And we will be cutting after this offshore component to some inshore runs where we will get the boat up to some moderately high speed, but we do have some speed limits on the broad water, and we do have a dirty bum because it's boat show season. This boat's been going to some large boat shows here in the region and just wasn't possible to get it cleaned in time. Anyway, let's get the thing moving. I'm going to be talking to you about total fuel. If you're looking through that camera, that is the total fuel flow just there, and that's the SOG, speed over ground. You can see the peak speed for this boat at some point in the not too distant past was 53.3 knots. So she's a quick thing, but we won't be doing that in the ocean. We'll just get moving and cruise. We're going sort of down swell, downwind at the moment. I've got 0 trim tab. And acceleration, I think if you're comparing it to the quad rig, I've not driven this hull with a quad rig before, but I've driven plenty of quads on other hulls before. The thing that you're going to notice if you switch over to the 600 V12s is the torque, the low end torque, and she just really wants to lurch up and get moving with very little effort. So as you can see, I'm at 3,800 revs variable, and I'm seeing 27 knots. Easy frickin' peasy, and I've got a fuel flow of 257. Let's just dial that back, and you see that drop to 230 and 200 at 22 knots. Very comfortable, and no trim tab. So if I just I'll actually play with the trim tab as I go across and up the swell, because I don't really feel the need to do that on this angle of attack with the waves behind me. I'm obviously at the standing position. This flip-up bolster is quite comfortable, and I can, in a moving seaway, I can put this foot here and sort of push my body into the seat and feel quite secure. And obviously you've got, I do like having these steering knobs on these stainless steel steering wheels. It feels like you've got more directional stability with the wheel. I don't know if that's the right term to use, but hopefully you get what I'm talking about. And obviously you can also select single lever on the throttle. So you might just see me resting my palm as we go into the waves, or throttling with the tips of my fingers so I don't accidentally over rev. Visibility's awesome. I've got the 2 vents closed, the 2 windows closed. These could be used as a helm door. We'll check that out in the tour. And just gonna head to port, run the swells on my port beam for a little bit, and continuing at 26 knots, 3,700 RPM. Noise levels is the other thing that you got to add. They're really low with these engines. Hopefully that's coming up through the microphone, but it's just not intrusive. You don't feel the need to raise your voice. You could really easily have a conversation on a long run if you were transiting up and down the coast, and if someone was sitting there, not a problem. These engines are just not intrusive at this sort of rev. To 3,700 revs. Let's just bump it up a little bit with the swells on the side. Short and sharp, these ones. They're very short wave period. So we're going to notice it when we go into the waves, 19 degrees of dead rise, and that's 29, 30 knots. I could definitely go faster if I wanted. 4,300 revs, 330 approximately total flow. So that's 110 per engine. And I'll just give it one little blast. No trim tab, remember? Super comfy. super comfy. It's all 33, 34 knots there. Now I'm just going to dial down a little bit on the trim tab, and I'm going to go into these waves. Okay, so that's a little bit more than I wanted to do. I'll just do half trim tab. Nice, comfortable amount of heel, but you don't lose your visibility on this one. This is being an American boat. They are designed for people of all sizes. So you could be the world's tallest man or woman, and you're going to have heaps of space. If you're a beamy bloke in any direction, you're going to be fine at this helm. But if you're a tall guy or girl, you won't have an issue. But what that also leads to, having this big window on the port side, if you are doing some sporty driving, particularly if you're in close quarters and you're worried about traffic, you can actually, there's a nice little bumpy one, we'll just go through a few waves. You can actually heel the thing over at a sporty fun angle, maintain the speed, and you're not going to lose your viz. So I would consider it maybe a little bit on the safer side from a visibility operational perspective, especially if you are by yourself. I can see everything, don't really feel the need to sit down, but I'm going to try it. I can electrically put this seat forward. Yeah, actually that's very comfortable. We've got a steep wave on us now, and oh, nicely done. Okay, so now we'll go across these waves. I'm doing that, and there goes my audio. Let's plug it in. Okay, hopefully you can still hear me. Okay, hopefully I'm back. Let's see. All right. So before I lost the audio, I was turning across the swell and just commenting how capable she is in this short and sharp stuff, and that the viz is perfectly fine. Now I'm just going to run across these swells and then down, and after this we're going to cut straight to some inshore operations, and I am going to just demonstrate some close quarters maneuverability, because I do believe quite a few of you are going to be attracted to this boat for the ease of handling compared to a 50, 60, 70, 80 foot boat which you may have at this point in time. So super easy cruising, 23 knots, and once again, if I run down swell, raising those trim tabs, I don't see any issues whatsoever with maintaining a speed in the mid-20s to low 30s, keeping you and your guests very comfortable. All right, let's head inshore. Okay guys, we are going to enter the bar pretty soon and head into some smoother water, but I just wanted to demo the Seakeeper because it is short, sharp, windy. This would be considered reasonably uncomfortable if you didn't have one of these. So let me just turn it off. Boom. The wind is coming on our starboard beam. Okay, that is deactivated, and now you should start to see the boat moving, and this is the angle that you're going to notice it the most. You know, we would be probably up to 15 tons with fully loaded this boat, so there's a bit of weight, but we're not super high, so center of gravity is going to be relatively low, but you can see the level of movement. Look at that, as that one rolls. We'll just wait for this next one, which is a steep one, and this one will really make things noticeable. And I'm going to activate the Seakeeper after this one. Feel that, and now let's activate it. And now you can see the gyro. We've got a couple of big ones rolling through here. That's a meter. And if you look at this through this camera and this one, and just line the horizon up with the window, and just see how much of a stability effect or stabilizing effect that puts on the decks. So if you needed to go forward, and I would suggest just this window is the way to go forward. You can just go straight out here and do that. If you have a reason to go forward, like me, catching a drone in the middle of the ocean, this is the way to do it. Okay, so we're back in the inshore part of the test here, guys, and I'm just going to take you through some flat water maneuverability, fuel flow, and we'll do a little bit of speed, bearing in mind I am speed limited. This boat is much more capable than what we are allowed to do in here, because we have a 40 knot speed limit, jet ski up ahead. Of course he's going to stop. There we go, no, he's fine now. So just cruising along at actually 31 knots SOG, all clear ahead. That's giving me 4,000 revs and a total fuel flow of 280. I'm just going to bump that speed up a little bit. I've got downwind conditions, beautiful flat water, engine trim down, trim tabs up. I'm going to do a little bit of trim up, and I'm seeing a real comfortable 34 knots. 34 knots with a dirty bump, 4,300 to 4,400 revs, and a 100 litres per motor consumption. And if I just dial that back a little bit, and at 29, 3,700, 28 knots, 3,450, you'd probably want to introduce just a little bit of trim tab, although it's not reducing visibility. I'm just conscious of this guy in the tinny, and so I'm going to come off the plane here before I speed up again. For those of you looking through camera 2, you can see the fuel flow here, so I'm looking at it and calling it out, but if you're looking on the screen, that's it just there, and that's the speed, just a little reminder. Okay, just letting those waves dissipate, and I will turn the boat, and then we're going to get it right up to speed on the way back. So these 600s, they don't turn left and right as you might be used to on perhaps your last boat. So if you had anything up to 450 horsepower outboards, they are going to they're going to turn left and right as you turn the boat, but these don't do it, and you don't want them to do that because there's going to be quite a lot of weight moving left and right. It might affect the balance of the boat, so it's actually slightly better to keep them on the center line. I think I just wet a few girls in bikinis up there. Sorry, maybe that's a good thing. So stay focused, stay focused. Yeah, so you want to keep the boat well balanced and well trimmed, but what you do need to get used to is your rudder angle. So it's just a case of counting the turns. You can have a rudder angle indicator on the dash and just look where you're going. It's not too complicated, but it's just going to be something that's slightly different compared to what you might have had last time. Okay, 33 knots, 4,700 revs. I'm going to increase that speed this time. 4,900 revs, 35 knots, 450 litres total consumption. I've got one opportunity here to get the boat up and moving. We do have a 40 knot speed limit in this part of town, so let's increase those revs over 5,000. Okay, dirty bump coming into effect, but still not stopping me from doing a 39 knot speed through flat water. Got a little bit of boat chop here. 5,300 revs. So if I do an engine trim up, I'm going to see more speed. The bow becomes a little bit more lively, and I'm seeing 40 knots easy there, and 500 consumption. You'll obviously see different numbers with a totally clean bump. So the sensation I get there, very smooth. Very, very comfortable. If you're used to an IPS shaft drive larger vessel, this is probably going to be a more pleasurable experience. Doing that turn at 29 knots, not losing visibility, feels quite safe. I've got my seat trimmed all the way forward, so I'm staying at the seated position. And then now let's dial it back and go for some range. Here's where I'm going to do some trim tab down, engine trim down, 18 knots, 154 total at 3,000 revs. And we did find, coming back into the very short, sharp chop that we had, very bunched up waves, that around about that 16 knot speed was incredibly comfortable. And you might find the same if you have some miles to burn into the wind. Obviously, off the breeze, you can run the thing at twice that speed. And to be honest, you could also just run the thing at twice that speed into the wind. But I'm considering your wives, okay? That's why I drive it at those speeds at times, because I know if you drive it at 30 knots into the wind, your wife probably won't come boating with you again, and that could be an issue. 130 litres at 14 knots, making a great big stern wave, but it'll be fine in the ocean. Let's dial it off before we get to the swimming beach again, because that wave's too big, and let's come into proper displacement mode. I see 10 knots SOG, 2,200 revs, 60 litres, so we've got 20 litres a motor at that speed. So that's actually going to be really good for some social inshore boating with your mates. And if you dial that off just a tad more, your stern wave becomes acceptable for a no wash zone. And so once you hit that approximately 8 knots SOG, let's just double check that, 1,400 revs and under 8 knots, you're not really going to offend anyone, and you're only burning 10 litres per motor. So now you're really bumping up the range at that speed. Obviously this is a sailing speed, but it's a very social speed if you're in enclosed waters and you've got traffic and navigation to worry about, because this is such a great social space with all the options we have for closing ourselves up or opening. You probably noticed I left that vent open, so I had some wind coming through, which today I don't mind because it's quite warm. But you have the options. You've got these hatches here, you've got those vents there. I'm going to call these helm doors, even though they're kind of, maybe they're windows, but they seem like perfectly suitable to use as a door to me. So, and then the whole back's plenty open. And once again, the noise levels with these V12s, completely fine. Don't really feel the need to raise your voice. Okay, let's go drop the anchor, and then we're going to find somewhere for some maneuverability demonstrations. So before we get to the anchorage, guys, I've just discovered that I had this boat way too far trimmed down, because if you give it much more trim up, the fuel flow, as I'm trying to demonstrate to you now, at 284, 4,300 RPM, is way better with a considerable amount of trim up. It's much more than I was expecting for a big heavy boat like this. So that's why we do these things, come out here and learn. Let me just hook around. I'm going to increase speed now. Look at that, 400 litres as opposed to 500 before. I'm going to give it more trim. Let's just go crazy. See what happens. We've got some jet skis here. Yeah, so I've seen a noticeable speed increase just there on the limited water that I've got. We can go faster and burn less with way more trim. So I think the lesson here is, don't be afraid to trim this boat up. I'm going to have to dial this speed off before I piss everyone off again. Don't be afraid to trim this boat up much more than what you would have thought of for something this size and weight. That's super interesting. Well, this is something, guys. Normally I'm not a huge fan of the Mercury joystick system because every boat's different, and I'm used to doing it with the 300 V8s and now the 400 V10s. Whilst I have operated the joystick on a couple of twin engine V12s, this is my first time on a triple rig and on a heavy wide boat like this 15-ton Conquest. And just watch this. I'm just going to apply some sideways pressure. I have a blow-on dock at the moment, but I'm just doing minimal, gentle sideways pressure and you can see the boat just gliding in. We do not have a bow thruster, and I'm doing small twists on the joystick head to maintain alignment with the dock, but I've got so much control. I love having this big opening. I'm going to call it a helm door. I'm just going to call it a helm door. But now I'm going to stick my head out. I'm actually going to stop the boat right now just so I don't have too much momentum. So I'm just going to push back the other way. Look at that. Oh, so good. So good. Now, with full viz, I'm going to slide the boat in. I've got my sterns out a little bit, so I'll just tickle that up. We'll just go nice and gentle. I'm going to touch it on the fenders. This is so good. And again, I'll slow that movement down a bit. Oh, wow, finger control. I'm going to touch on the front fender, so I might actually just straighten that up a little bit so I touch on all fenders. And I can actually see touching in 3, 2, 1. Wow. So good. Okay, now check that I'm all clear. I'm going to now slide out of here. So hopefully you guys can see what I see, but I'm just going to slide on the joystick, and I'm not putting too much joystick input to achieve this. And you know what? I think I even over rotate a little bit because it's so responsive, but gentle pressure on the joystick, gentle, consistent, is giving me really solid sideways push. And can you see the distance I've now created with a blow on? So the wind is coming in, hopefully you can see because of the waves at this direction, and that's incredible. So I'm going to just clear this space, and then I'm going to spin the boat because there's no one around. It's the end of the day, and why not? Okay, now I'm going to bring the joystick back to center. I'm such a fan of this big window because it gives me full control. So now I'm going to just stop my forward movement. I'm going to spin the boat to starboard just by swiveling the joystick head. Get the boat moving, and now let momentum do it. A little bit of reverse thrust so I don't get too close. So good. Now let's reverse and see if she reverses, and I'll try steering. You can see I've got a mooring that I can use as a reference point. So I'm just pushing back, and I'm going to steer upwind and see if the boat steers. Look at that. Really, look at that control. I'm going to steer above that mooring, and then I'm going to stop. Okay, now I'm straightening that up. I'm going to bring the joystick back, and now I'm going to go skyhook, just see how long it takes to respond, because, okay, so we are moving about a boat length now. I'm wondering whether it needs to...
That didn't engage.
Yeah, it didn't engage. Confirm, okay. Boom. Well, there you go. That's why you got to check these things. You don't want to just assume. Autopilot is on standby, take immediate action. Okay, boom. So good. So that's really, really useful. And you could also do a traditional throttles approach, but I think the joystick, from what we just saw, is definitely the choice. If you are doing traditional throttles, just have a look on the screen here. This is your rudder angle indicator. So if I turn to port, see how you can see that move? Now if I turn to starboard, because as I mentioned before, we don't have, so now I'm turning the wheels to port and I've got some reverse thrust on. We don't actually have any movement of the engine units themselves. So that's why you might want to refer back to this rudder angle indicator here, or just go to joystick. So back on the joystick now, nice.
I think the skyhook hasn't been calibrated to
Oh,
this
it's not
boat
been
as part of
calibrated because
BD.
this is, it's brand new. Okay, well there you go. We have an answer. This is why we do these tests. So very easy for me to transition from throttle control to joystick. All you do is go neutral down to the joystick. And now, as an exercise, I'm just going to move over to the other joystick. Got my drone here in the way. And so you just lift this up, press that. Okay, and I assume I press transfer. Boom, boom. And there we go. Okay, now I've got control. I'd like to open this window. And I'm just going to reverse the boat. So good. So I haven't got fenders out on this side, but I'll just spin the boat from here. So now I'm just applying a greater amount of swivel to the joystick, and you can hear the engines revving right up. That's full swivel, so that's full tilt now. So a lot of power. You can imagine that being useful on a windy day. And then I'll just slide it without touching the marina to starboard. I'll just go in a couple of meters. Wonderful. Wonderful. And they've even designed this seat that I'm sitting on right now to be used when it's in the sun lounge position. Just going to stabilize the boat now. Look at that. I came in with some power and whew, I've almost got too much power going on there now. I'm going to slow that down. I'm going to point the nose into the wind. And then I'm going to drive forward. So there's no rush to leave this helm. You can just clear the dock before it's too busy, and then just push forward. And it will only drive you at a very slow pace. Awesome. So good. Love it. Okay. Skyhook is working now, guys. So there you go. That's what happens when you're filming sometimes. I hope that was educational. I hope that was useful. This boat is a really simple, big, capable boat to operate for a short-handed crew or solo operator if you've had a little bit of experience with boats. So I do really believe if you are coming from a larger boat, or if you were thinking about a larger boat and common sense prevailed and you want something now that will give you really high speed capabilities, really high cruising capabilities, or lots of other capabilities, whether it's fishing, water toys, or just fun, this is going to do it for you, and in a size that you can manage. So if you want to press the button on a purchase, go over to my Patreon channel now. We've done about a 20-minute deep dive on lots of interesting bits of information we've learnt throughout the day. And if you're comparing this boat with something similar, I'll pop that up on the screen right now and go and do your own research, because that's why I do this. So hopefully these videos will empower you to get out and have your best boat life. Thanks, guys. See you soon.